welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you all about how to shoot fashion content at home. Now I get a lot of questions about how I shoot my content at home, what I use, how I shoot it, etc. So I thought I would do a little video and explain all of my tips and things I do to hopefully help any of you who are struggling with shooting content at home. It's definitely a task. At the start of this whole quarantine lockdown period, I had no idea what I was doing, and I won't lie to you, I really struggled. Like, I couldn't figure out how to make a white wall look nice. I was going from using like a really kind of like interesting backgrounds like buildings and stuff to a white wall, and I was like, how on earth do I create content with a white wall? I haven't shot content inside since I started my Instagram page, which was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I've definitely learned a lot of things about what works and what doesn't. And some days I try and shoot and I'm like, I can't work this out. Like, I can't figure out how I'm supposed to do this. So I'm going to give you my tips and tricks, and hopefully this will help any of you guys. Tip number 1 is find a space. So when you want to create content, you need to have a space that you could do things with. It doesn't have to be a large space. It doesn't have to be a space that's like really aesthetically pleasing. It just needs to be a space, because you can work on the aesthetically pleasing side of it. Just find a space that works for you. I'm lucky enough to have a flat, but I know if I was at home, living at home in my parents' house, my room is not, it's a decent sized room, but it's not laid out in the most beautiful way. So you have to think about what space can you use. If it's a corner in your room that's like the perfect amount of space, use that. If it's a hallway on your in your house, use that. Whatever works for you and whatever space you have, use that. If it's your bed, use your bed. There are so many things that you can use, but just find a space that allows you to be able to create content. If that does mean you have to sit on your bed to create it, that's fine. I think it's just all about being creative with the space that you have. Also, one thing I would note when it comes to finding a space is move things. You don't have to use the space that is already just created in your house or your room or whatever. Move stuff. There's nothing worse than just sitting there and being like, oh, I can't find a space because, well, that's in the way. Just move it. I know it sounds a bit like, oh my god, I've got to move something. That's a lot of effort. If you do like a content shoot all at once, you won't have to move it that much. And I genuinely believe, like, when you move things, it makes your space different and you can change it up, or it can sometimes just give you that little bit of extra room that maybe you didn't have before. So just move things. If you have to shove your bed right to the side of the wall just to kind of get a bit of extra space, do that. If you can move your bed, obviously. But just move things about so you can create your space. Obviously, it's kind of difficult if you're sharing a house or your room's not particularly huge or you're struggling with a space. Just move things where you can. If that means that your shared living room, you ask them, look, I just want to spend like an hour or so shooting some content, can I just do this? Move the sofa out of the way, use the wall, do you know what I mean? Just kind of find a space, move stuff, and create an area that you can shoot in. Tip number 2, if you don't have an aesthetic background, there is a way of fixing that, and that is with a white sheet. Now, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people do this. It's a very popular kind of backdrop, and I genuinely think if I wasn't in this flat and I didn't have a white wall, this is exactly what I would be doing. You can get like a curtain pole, or you can get like curtain wire, I've seen a lot of people use to hang up a white sheet. It's probably the most easy way of creating content with an aesthetic background, and most of us do already have a white sheet. Or if you don't have a white sheet, you can order some fabric off Amazon or buy a white sheet. Honestly, it's such a nice way of creating a background. It's a bit of texture, so it adds a bit more to it. You can kind of like iron the sheet if you wanted to kind of flatten out any creases. I think it's genuinely a really nice way of creating content because it just adds a little bit of something, and it's like people enjoy it because other people are doing it, and I think it's quite like nice. I feel like I've said that a few times, but using a sheet is a really nice way of just creating a simple backdrop that is aesthetic, and you can add to it and make it look nice. If you have a white wall, use your white wall. You don't need to necessarily use a white sheet. Or if you have a cream wall, you can always like whiten the wall. If you use the Facetune app, you can whiten the wall when you edit your pictures. But yeah, or if you don't want to go for a white wall and you have various different coloured walls in your house that you'd like to use that. You don't have to use a white sheet. And also in terms of space, you can also shoot outside with a white sheet and get like pure sunlight, which I've seen a lot of people do. So if your space inside is not working and it's a nice day, you can always bring your white sheet outside, hook it over the top of your fence and shoot something out there. Or your washing line. It's another way of hanging a sheet up. But yeah, just use like a white sheet's a really good way of doing it. Tip number 3 is props are key. Now you may see in a lot of my pictures I use the same props because I don't have a huge amount of props. And because we are likely to be moving back to the UK, I can't really buy any more props because they'd be silly. But props are key, and there's so many things you could buy and things you probably already have in your house that you could use. So I use often like frames, my Desenio prints with the frames. I just pop them in the background. They're just nice. They add a bit of texture, they add a bit of something nice. Do you know what, they add a really nice homey touch, and it shows your kind of what would you call it, your interiors and what you like. And I think that's quite nice because people that relate to you and people that like your content may be inspired by the prints and stuff you have in your background. Use plants. You can use mirrors. Mirrors are a really good thing to have in the background because they reflect, so they add a little bit of depth to your picture without actually like needing to go crazy with like fancy camera equipment, if you know what I mean. You could use books, you can use what else could you use, rugs, really nice rugs, pampas grass, fake plants, candles. You can use big, I've already said books. What else could you use? Vases. You could use I don't know, there's loads of things you could use. Little props are great. Like this plant here, you've probably seen in a lot of my pictures because I use it all the time. It's just a great plant. It adds a bit of something to my pictures, and I really like it. So yeah, plants are a good one. Because, you know, most of us already have plants, or if you don't have plants, you can go and order them. Order like a fake plant, or, you know, get yourself a real plant, whatever you fancy. But use props that you already have and then maybe add to them if you are missing a few things. Tip number 4, shoot on self-timer. So this is something that I found to be a bit of a task, but now I've learned it, I find it so easy. I shoot on my Olympus pen camera. I love this camera, it's incredible. A lot of people have this camera. Do you know what? For a little point and shoot camera, it's incredible. And this is the second one I've had. I had the EPL7. This is the EPL9. And I love this camera. Like, I can't express to you how much I love this camera. But it has a self-timer mode and an app that you can link to it. So basically what I do is I link my phone to this app, to their app on this, and I can shoot pictures from my phone, which is why I love self-timer mode. You don't have to go and get yourself a camera. Like, I don't think it's a necessary thing to do, but shoot on self-timer mode, whether you're using your camera or your phone. Self-timer mode is a saviour. But yeah, I use this camera. If you're looking to buy a camera to shoot Instagram pictures with, this is a really, really good one. I will link it below. And then I use the 17mm lens on it because it creates really nice, like, slightly blurry backgrounds. I literally love it, but the normal lens that comes with it is just as good. So yeah, this is the camera that I use, but I always use it on self-timer. And I just, like I said, take the pictures using my phone. Like, I set the timer, put this to the side, pose. I will maybe do a video on it or add a clip over top to show you what I do. But it's a really, really good thing to do, so I can see exactly what I'm shooting. But also it's on self-timer. But if you don't have a camera with like an app like that, setting it up, pressing self-timer, running into the picture is just as good, because let's face it, we've got to work with what we have. So yeah, and then the other thing that leads into self-timer is a tripod. So I can't show you right now because you're on the tripod, but I have this tripod that I bought from Amazon. I think it was about £10, really cheap, and it's really good. Like, it's really small, it's really compact, doesn't take up a lot of space. I have one back home that's like really chunky, but this one's like really small, so traveling with it is easy, and it just folds away nicely. So use a tripod. You can get phone like extensions to put on top of a tripod if you're someone who's using your phone to shoot content, or you can just use your camera, whatever you want, but I usually put my camera on top of it. But like I said, you can use your phone as well. I will link this tripod that I've got below because it's great. And if I can't find this one, I'll try and find something similar. But yeah, love it, it's great. Use a tripod. Like, usually you can get them quite cheap. If you don't have a tripod or you don't want to spend the money on a tripod, just find an area where you can prop your phone up or your camera up to create the content, or you can use your arm, but that can be difficult. Or ask someone who lives in your house to help you out. Tip number 5 is mirror selfies. So mirror selfies are literally a savior, and apart from the fact that my mirror is currently smashed because it fell over, I have been loving mirror selfies. I literally just shoot them on my phone. I don't use a camera. I don't really, when I'm doing mirror selfies, I don't really like to use my camera. I think it just looks a bit clunky. Yeah, the quality is better, but I just think it doesn't look real. Do you know what I mean? I like the idea of using a mirror selfie and it being real and using your phone. I just think it feels more natural and more relatable than using a clunky camera. I just think the camera just looks weird. I don't know, might just be me, but I like to use my phone. So mirror selfies are great if you're not someone who has a camera, or you can't afford to buy a tripod or whatever. Most people have a phone and most people have a mirror, so you can just prop your mirror up. If you've created your background, prop the mirror up on, like, in front, so you still have your nice background, and just take your pictures, and it's great. I love doing that. The mirror, before it got smashed, moved around my flat, found different areas, different backgrounds, and that's what's quite easy with mirror selfies. You can do that, and I think once you know how to kind of get different styles of mirror selfies, it's great. A lot of people do mirror selfies and their whole feed is mirror selfies, and it works. So, you know, if that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. And mirror selfies are great because, like I said, they're more relatable, and when you take them on your phone, it's super easy. You can snap, edit, upload, and there's no like transferring files about or whatever. So mirror selfies are definitely something that I think is one of the easiest ways to create content at home, because you don't have to worry about the camera setup. I love using my camera. It's something I spoke about in my Instagram video. I love using it, like, it's my little baby. I love it so much. So I don't really like using my phone for images that much, but when it comes to mirror selfies, I find it to be the most useful thing to use. So yeah, I use the my phone's the iPhone 11 Pro Max, if anyone's wondering, but you don't need to have this kind of phone. Do you know what I mean? Just use your phone. Anyway, so I want to touch on things that are worth buying for home content. Now, I have kind of mentioned this before, but I just wanted to kind of say the things that I find most useful. So like I said, a white sheet is great, tripod. You don't necessarily need to buy a camera, but you can buy a fitting on top of the tripod for your phone. Props are really good, little stools. What else would I say is worth buying for home content? And then I'd probably say mirrors. Don't buy into stuff if you don't need it or you don't think it will be useful for you. Make sure you buy into something that's worth it and worth your time and worth your money, because we're all kind of a little bit low on money at the moment. Like, none of us are necessarily like wanting to splash the cash. So make sure that the things that you're buying are things that you can reuse, that would go in your room anyway, or you were looking for anyway. Do you know what I mean? Don't just buy stuff for the sake of this. Like, yeah, it's a good thing to buy because we're probably going to be in this situation for a while, but don't buy anything that you can't afford or that you don't think would fit into your space anyway. But if there's anything that I think is worth buying into, is buying like a mirror or buying a few mirrors, because then you can move them around, and I genuinely think that's probably the most useful thing that you could buy. Another thing you could do if you're struggling with content or you're struggling with how your content's looking, or you don't want to just post mirror selfies after mirror selfies, create like crop shots. So you can hold your phone or your camera like this and create like a crop shot of your outfit, or you could do a selfie, or you could take pictures of your like feet on the bed or whatever. That is a really good way of kind of mixing up your feed. So you can do like little detail shots, crop shots. You could show like your jewelry, your hair, whatever it is you want to do. You can do that and then have your mirror selfies in between, and that will mean that your feed won't just be mirror selfies. You'll have mirror selfie, pair of shoes, half your outfit, another outfit, mirror selfie. Do you know what I mean? So you can like dot it about as you go, and that could be quite a nice way of creating content and making it different, if you're not able to shoot full outfit pictures, which I totally get is not easy. And I think we want to make it as easy as we can for ourselves, but still being creative. And it's a really good way of doing that. You can just change it up. Shooting your shoes or whatever is so easy because you don't have to necessarily be wearing makeup. You know, like crop shots are great because you can literally just do from like here down. You don't have to worry if you're like not wearing any makeup. It's great. And then my last tip to share with you is use the sunlight. So you will probably have seen on my Instagram that I post a lot of pictures with sunlight, and the reason is because they light up pictures so beautifully that I just can't say no to it. I love it. So I often shoot with sunlight. I know that not everyone is able to shoot with sunlight, but if you can shoot with, if sunlight's coming into your room and you can reflect it into your space with a mirror, do that. I think sunlight can really just enhance your photos. You don't have to. You may not be in a space where there's sunlight. You may be living in an area that constantly rains, and that's okay. You don't need to use sunlight. But if you have the ability to use sunlight and sunlight does come into your space, then use it, because it makes so much difference. And all of my photos are shot with sunlight because the light that comes into my flat is just amazing. The only annoying thing is that it comes at a certain time. You can't, unless you've got like a house that has like the sun goes right around and you can use different rooms, it's really difficult. So I have to shoot my content at around 2 or 3 o'clock to get the good light, which is so annoying because I like to kind of get on with my day and shoot in the mornings, but it just doesn't work otherwise. So yeah, I do have to wait for the sunlight to come around. I mean, the lighting's good in the day, but it's not the same, and sometimes you just want like a beam of sunlight. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, sunlight's great, but you don't have to use sunlight. I just like sunlight. So those are my tips. I hope this was useful for you guys. I may have missed some things. If I have, pop a comment below or message me on Instagram and I'll get to that. But yeah, it's all just about kind of being creative and finding a space that works and using what you have, basically, would be my tips, my top kind of roundup tips. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, let me know if you have any other questions, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video.